Schools Work podcast, a podcast for everyone in education. This show is brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. At SREB, we believe that every school has the potential to be great. Whatever you do in the school, whatever your job may be, let's talk about things that make schools work.
The existence of CAD is not just a high school. We are saving, not we, but this school and its purpose is saving a community. Because we have seen a dramatic decline in the middle class for generations. And now we have students who can step out of high school because our machining academy had 100% employment right out of high school. These kids are going to be able to very slowly but successfully rebuild their own community. And that's going to come from them, not us. And it's awesome to be a part of that. Because these kids right now, they come here with a sense of purpose. They want to be in school.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome to see. They just want to go to work. They just want to go to work.
Welcome to the Making Schools Work podcast. My name's Daniel Rock, a senior instructional coach at SREB, and I'm here with Deborah Cullen, one of our great instructional coaches. How are you, Deborah?
I'm doing well, Dan. How are you?
Always glad to have you on these episodes. Deborah is one of our experts in both academic and technical center instruction and student learning. And she's going to join us today in talking with teachers from the Career Academy of Decatur in Decatur, Alabama. This is a school we spoke to last week, where we spoke to the administrators about why the school exists, who it's helping, and how they've built approach to learning, where they combine academics and CTE in every classroom. This week, we're going to talk with teachers from that school. What are some things, Debbie, you're interested in hearing from the teachers and learning about in this episode?
Well, as a former English teacher at a career technical center, I'm really interested in hearing the kinds of things that they're doing in their classrooms, in their academic classrooms, to support what CTE does, and to get some ideas that I can share with the teachers that I work with across the country as well.
I'm hoping to see how they build relevance and student interest. When kids have interest, genuine purpose and interest and curiosity, they learn. And this school provides that opportunity. So let's get into the episode.
I can't wait.
We're going to speak with Angie Maples, an ELE teacher from CAD, and Wes Stevenson, who teaches social studies. So we've got Angie, and you teach?
I teach English, and I teach in the Teaching Academy.
ELA and teaching, because you're also a CTE teacher.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of.
They don't even get a credential, but they're talking about adding that in the future.
Okay. And then we have Wes.
And I teach social studies. I'll also do some of we service virtual kids. And I see kids that are working on an admin program where I don't teach it, but they're in my room and I'm supervising and servicing them and what they need, whether that's unlocking tests or printing guided notes for them or things like that.
So tell us a little bit about your school and how your school is different from a traditional school. How would you describe it to somebody who's interested in going there?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that it's trying to serve a need in the community that we live in. As someone like Ms. Maples, who's told, I did 7th grade social studies for 23 years. And you could see, you obviously can identify students that college is not something that they're going to achieve. We're just dealing in realities here, but we live in a community in Decatur that is so based on the industries, because we sit on the Tennessee River, which I'm sure y'all have been over with our principals. And those are the families of the kids that we have. And we wanted to show them that there was a way, there was another avenue there. I'm a lifelong Decatur resident. I had no idea. I could see the factories, see the smokestacks, these kind of things. But until I came to CAD and took these tours and became exposed. I had no idea what went on there. And I'm a 47-year-old man. So I know that my seventh graders and these kids, a lot of them don't know that there's an opportunity for them there in the workforce if they learn these skills that can be provided. And that's going to benefit our whole community. And that's something that we struggle with in poverty and different things here in Decatur. And it was almost like our school system was trying to find a way that they could try to help the situation. And I think that's the idea or the birth of CAD, is to fit these kids, maybe that college is not the future, but they can still be a productive member to our community or any community because maybe a skill they've learned here.
So your charge is to incorporate CTE skills into your English class and into your social studies class.
And
Can you describe what that looks like?
What?
okay, so when I was hired, or when I was just chosen to transfer over here, we did not have a curriculum for the English and the CTE embedded curriculum. So I spent the summer looking over some things, but it was not until I went on the field trips that we went on last year with SREB and actually sat down with the panel, the industry panel, that I realized that everything that I had planned was ineffective. It was not what they needed. And so what I did was I had to kind of start late in my planning, but I try to take every single thing I could think of. I've bought materials to see what do I need to do to help those kids. For example, one of the things that the teacher that I've been told by everyone is communication is important. And we spent a whole unit on being able to speak to people, to shake their hands, the universal sign I don't want you to shake my hand, how to have conversations where you make eye contact, how to introduce yourself, how to just carry on general conversation. We talked about body language and how your body language has to match what you say, because people don't trust people when they have mismatched language. We do email etiquette because they are accustomed to texting. And so they have abbreviations. And so we do proper email, and they have to email principals and other teachers and me. And I'll tell them, okay, I'm not going to respond to anything you ask me if you don't email me properly. And so we practice email etiquette. We do simple things, like I said, standard operating procedures. For example, I have a class that comes back from lunch. They're very rambunctious. So I said, okay, one of the things we're going to learn, we're going to do a standard operating procedure. How do we enter the classroom? And then last year we had students who would just knock on the door and walk in. How do you enter a visitor classroom? And so what we do, and then we take it on to a more advanced, something like, how do we wash our hands? How do we do this at work? And so one of the companies gave me some simplified SOPs for them to work on. And so we've read Ken Iverson's book, we've do Plain Talk, we do so many things in the classroom. Everything is pretty much related to the workforce.
I love that so much. As you were talking, I think about generally as instructional coaches like Daniel and I are, we often tell teachers we need to have bell ringers when you come into the classroom, and students should be doing certain things. I love the idea of talking about that in career term of the standard operating procedures. That is something we as academic teachers can absolutely do. When we talk about with project-based learning, one of those things we talk about having norms and having the things that we do in our classrooms. So the idea of using standard operating procedures is fantastic. I love that.
Well, the vocabulary that I put together this year is all business and market related or workforce related. Like, for example, words that a freshman might not know, such as market share or a key performance indicator, negotiation, or contract. And so we're using a lot of vocabulary also to supplement some of those terms. And when they come to my classroom the first day, I tell them, this is Career Academies of Decatur. I want you to come to my class like you're clocking in. You're coming to work. Don't sit slouched. Don't turn in your work late. Do your very best on your work, because that's the same attitude you've got to carry into the workforce.
Debbie, Debbie's got 3 kids. she's going to start using these in her house. It sounds like
100%. I'm saying, I mean, it's time to get serious about this. Well, and I also heard you say earlier about that college is not a choice for students, but there are so many other things that our students can do now. And we talk a lot about generational differences between the boomers and the Gen X and Gen Z. And one of the things that we know about the students that we have right now is that they have an entrepreneurial spirit. They want to start their own businesses. They're not going to college, and they might not be going and having the same job and then retiring in it. They want to have entrepreneurship. And so the ideas that we're showing these kinds of things, and we're teaching them that vocabulary, that's how we add back into the world after COVID, how kids re-engage with school again, is to know that it's going to matter.
Yeah, you're dead on. We have a couple of students here. One girl that bakes cookies. And so once every month she comes around the first of the week and she has her order form, passes that thing around. You pick snickerdoodle or chocolate chip, and by George, on Friday, she's got them there. We have a student that does like paper flower arrangements and takes really an outside the box thing. He actually had to explain that one to me, but takes it very serious and gets many orders for those arrangements and things like that. So you're dead on there. The kids here are definitely entrepreneurial and have something in mind for sure.
And well, adding on to what Wes said, we also have students who take their money from their paycheck, a portion of their money from their paycheck, because I've taught 2 of them, and they invest their money. So I've constantly used to have to get them off the computer, and I felt bad about getting them off the computer because they were wanting to watch their market share, watch their investments, and see if they were making any money. So we have several kids who are using those kind of techniques to be entrepreneurs as well.
I'm definitely going to have my teenagers listen to this podcast.
Yeah, they need to start investing. Your school identified pillars that are sort of universal skills that everyone needs to be thinking about and purposely incorporating. Tell me, work ethic, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, adaptability. Angie was talking about communication. Wes, can you talk a little bit about in a social studies class, how you incorporate these pillars into your curriculum and your instruction?
Sure. I teach ninth here. I have my in class is ninth graders. So I have ninth grade social studies. So there are going to be newcomers here, and it's tough. There's no doubt that was the most intimidating thing for me coming to CAD, especially have only taught one curriculum. And that was the comfortability of it. And that's kind of what made it scared for me to leave what I was doing to jump into something new, kind of the old dog, new tricks kind of thing. And it is very math and science. You can embed a lot of credits here at CAD through the CTEs. You can embed social studies credits into the CTEs. And so these kids have to get it. And so they're still going to get the nuts and bolts of our state curriculum and that kind of thing. But of course, along the way, I'm going to highlight things that are going on in the community, maybe with the businesses that we have. In terms of communication, we had a project second semester last year where I had a list of basically the 25 of the industries here in North Alabama that we're around. Many of them we have relationships with. And so I had a list of contacts that they could communicate with. And so some of them did in-person interviews with them. And these would be leaders in these industries that would come in. Some of them conducted phone interviews with them. Others, I said, like Angie was talking about, did a professional email outlining questions that I had provided for them. We were looking into things like business culture, what jobs actually are available there, what skills do you need to have, what are you looking for in somebody that you're trying to employ. And so it makes me nervous when you have a freshman that's going to meet with the vice president of whatever the company XYZ. We try to coach them up for sure. That's part of the education that we're doing here. But I think there's a lot of interest on the other side. And so it kind of plays into these businesses, and they're excited to see the relationship and a possible new workforce for them.
I like what Wes said about the interview process and how we have to teach them up. Is that what's the term? You teach them up, coach them, or whatever? Because like in one of the things that we do, one of the very first things we've already actually done is we sit down and they have something that they fill out. What makes you a good employee? If I were to sit down in an interview with you right now and ask you, what qualities do you have right now that make me want to hire you? And then we also discussed, though, but what are some of your weaknesses or your shortcomings or things that you need to work on? And this is what we need to start working on in year 9 so we can work it on 10, 11, and 12. And we talk about why that makes a good employee and why it doesn't. And some of them say things like, well, I'm funny. I bring the life to the party. And I'm like, well, what? I said, that's great that you're going to be a great employee on the job and keep everybody entertained. But is that something that really screams, I'm a great employee? And I said, I'm talking about determined work ethic, willing to be flexible, listen, respectable. I said, those kinds of things are the things that we want to hear when we're hiring you.
Whenever they ask me my weakness, I always say, I just care so much. I'm an overworker and I just put so much effort out there that some people feel that I overwhelm them.
Turn those negatives into positives.
Yeah. Angie, what grade do you teach?
9 and 10.
9 and 10. And I'm assuming that Alabama has a state test, like that they have to take a standardized assessment.
They take the ACT in the 11th grade.
In the 11th grade.
And in the pre-ACT in 10.
So how do you make sure that they're still getting the core skills, that what you're teaching is still aligned to the standards that are going to be tested on?
To me, English, like the grammar mechanics part, still beautifully aligned with both CTE and with the Alabama course of study. Because I tell them, no matter where you are in what walk of life, you still have to communicate with people. You need to know how to speak correctly. You need to know how to write correctly, because we are inundated with text and slang speak. And you need to learn that some of these things that you say that are slang speak is inappropriate. And so, and no matter what we do, every day we are still doing, whether we're writing a memo, whether we're sending an email, we're doing grammar and we're doing grammar corrections. And I'm like, okay, so here's the email. What did we do wrong? Even down to the name that you have in your personal email. And I even laughed because I said last year I had a parent whose email was Sexy Lexi. And I said, you cannot send a professional email to anyone with something so inappropriate as your email address. And so we've done a lot of, that's where we do a lot of work on that. And it's also funny that people say they always use Beowulf as an example of what you don't need to learn Beowulf in high school. But even though we're in a CTE environment, there is a lot of literature that has very much has work ethic.
Absolutely.
We do read some pieces, but I always bend it. Like Beowulf, there's a resume. We write a resume with Beowulf. In Canterbury Hills, it's working with all different kinds of people.
Well, I think you're absolutely right about that. And one of the things that I tried to do is there are so many more. I had to move away because I loved Shakespeare so much, and you can use Shakespeare in those kinds of things. But then I also even grew as a person who, with the things that I read about reading other books that had something to do, like The Circle and Bad Blood about a biotech industry. There are so many pieces of work out there that we can read in our classrooms that kind of tie in with business and industry and people changing careers and doing all those kinds of things. So there are so many things that you can do to having students write different things like business plans and emails and things like that you were saying.
I'm wondering if there's examples of students learning the same concepts that you might have taught 2 years ago at the traditional school, that they were more interested and engaged and curious about now because of the twist you gave to it. Same basic concept, but more genuine interest. Did anything come to mind in terms of topics or concepts that were more well received and more, I guess, learned at a deeper level because of this different approach?
Are you asking me?
Either of you.
Oh, do you have any?
You have one you think of?
Well, no, I can't think of anything in particular, but like, for example, before I started doing the CTE course or embedding, I also tried to make it real life application. And so like we read like a short story by Poe that's about a megalomaniac and who ends up, because of his behaviors, everybody dies. And so we talk about how we don't think everybody's going to die, but it's all about in the attitude. Even if you're an executive, that's one of the things that I really love about Plain Talk. If you've never read Ken Iverson's Plain Talk, it is one of the best books ever written for businesses because it's not all about Nucor. It's about, and the kids love it because it's real life, how you should live your life, whether you're an employee or a manager. And it's about how that symbiotic relationship between employee and employer. And they loved it.
I mean,
they really led with the employee.
That's a great example. Getting teenagers to read a book is like really hard. And to get them to be interested in a book is Herculean. You're having them read a extended nonfiction that's not written for teenagers. It's written for general population, for adults, about the technical aspect of his business. And it's a local business that they are all familiar with. And they are able to see sort of behind the scenes of that business. Reading a nonfiction book by a businessman, probably in many schools, wouldn't be taken as particularly interesting. But because it's connected to this broader theme of your school, it was authentic to what you're trying to do.
This is just, it popped in my head because it was fresh on my memory from this week, but talking about the Renaissance, for example, and we were talking about how life was like in the cities and port cities. And one of the activities was talking about, okay, the merchant made this much a year and the skilled worker made this much a year. And then the unskilled worker made this much, and they could see the differences. But then I could actually kind of get into the weeds on, well, what is a merchant? They're the ones that own the shop, right? A skilled worker. Okay. Now what's the difference between a skilled worker and an unskilled worker? If I go down here to the welding shop and our welding teacher tells me to do this, well, I'm not going to know how to do that. I have no earthly idea. But now if I went down to the welding shop and the welding teacher said, hey, here's a broom, can you sweep the shop? Well, I can do that. That's not a skill. And so since they're around these CTEs, it hits home a little more. Oh yeah, I'm learning to be a welder, or I'm going to be able to cut hair, so they can see. And then they see the difference in the money that was made at those levels. So it kind of hit home a little bit more with them.
That's a really good example. What I'm hearing you describe is, one, you're building on their prior knowledge. So you're connecting a complicated, abstract, far away idea, which is like Renaissance economy, which is very different than anything they've seen today. But you're using what they're familiar with and what they're thinking about to make that connection. You're also connecting economics with history and with career vocabulary so that they have a broader concept of it. I'm wondering about what Debbie has to say. Debbie, what are your thoughts?
I was just going to say, I think that one of the things, as if I were a new teacher listening to this, that there are so many things that we can do, whether we're in CAD or wherever, where we want to really reignite our students back into our classroom. All the examples that you're giving, there are things that we can do right now of having our students be able to learn why English is important and why social studies is important. It's not just something that we're doing to them. It's something that they can use right now to go out and to make some money in the real world.
What about project-based learning? Well, what role does that play in how your experience has been different these last year plus? How's that been incorporated into what you're doing?
Good.
So what I have learned in my classes is that students, we have been so far removed from what everybody should know for so many years, and we won't recover from COVID until the last kindergartner goes through school. And so when students come to our classes, there's so many deficits because concessions have had to be made to cover material in previous grades. But so what I do a lot of projects, and a lot of them are work-related projects. Like we're about to do a project on research. We're going to do a career inventory, and then we're going to research that career, and we're going to find out salaries and the job availabilities in the market and the training required. And then they're going to do a vision board. They're going to do a vision board of what they think, and they're going to put all that together. But before we even do that, we're going to do my dream job. And they're going to, before we research anything, and they're going to do another vision board on what they think it's going to be. And I don't know if that answers your question, but we do a lot of projects. But one thing I want to say that's kind of project-based is like one of the stories, we have a new department this year. We had construction, but we have industrial maintenance. And so what we did is I was trying to teach them processes and following steps, because that's part of the CTE thing, is how to think outside the box, critical thinking, following steps, that kind of thing. So I found a story about some missionaries building houses in, I don't know, Ghana, somewhere like that. I don't remember exactly where it was. And so we read the story and we discussed the story, but then we went back because we have a large Hispanic population. And so I'm trying to teach to the demographic that I have. And so, probably my students this year are probably 70% Hispanic. And so I know a lot of them have a lot of experience in construction and in yard work. So we started talking about what is the process to build the house. And we took it through all of the process from digging the footers to and everything. And they did a beautiful job of designing and teaching each other the processes of building the house. And that has nothing to do with English, but it has everything to do with CTE and following the process and learning.
It has a lot to do with English.
I
Sounds
was
like there's a
gonna
lot to
say,
do with
yeah,
English.
That does.
The traditional English.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Today is a mind shift. It's a mind shift. It's a mind shift for all of us about how we can use our academics to help in the career tech world and vice versa. And I know that I've heard across the country, so many teachers complain that students cannot follow directions. But when you're teaching that, and I guarantee you that's a similar and frustration in the business world, but you're teaching them how to follow directions in that matter to them. That's something that they can use. And one of the things that I was able to do is I had a local company ask me to come as an English teacher and teach their people who are out in the field in this construction field how to write a report for different people. They wanted them to write one quick report at the end of the day, but that it had to serve 3 different needs in the office. And it really made me think that was something as an English teacher I could bring back into my classroom and teach my students, okay, we're going to write one piece of information, but it's going to have to go for 3 different audiences. And that was a real eye-opener for me and for my students, that you can do one piece of information like that still satisfies the ELA criteria, but that also would work out in the business world. So that was an eye-opening experience for me too.
Well, I just stole that. I just wrote that down.
Oh, good.
Essay.
Ms. Chittum told us about your showcase at the end of the year, and that every teacher, academic teacher, had to have their students do a showcase. Tell us a little bit about what showcase assignments your students did.
Yours was really cool.
So we implemented again quite some different things. They had to choose, and I gave them some time to look into the different companies, because some of them might have a relative that might work at one, and so they had a kind of a connection there, and maybe one of them did things that they had an interest in. So once they chose it, I gave them criteria of information that they needed to find out about these companies, and obviously put them in touch and gave them the ways to get that information. And again, sometimes they had to reach out, talk to people, email them. And then finally, obviously, when we had the actual showcase itself, we brought these stakeholders in, not just from the industries, but from school board to business owners and things like that. And we had these kids actually get up and present them. which again had a teacher on nerve. And what I found out, and I guess what was truly rewarding, is the kid that you least expected to knock your socks off by presenting or would even want to present were the heroes. They blew everybody away. So they're the ones that make the teacher look good, I promise you. But that was the rewarding part, is to see a kid that I guess just got into the material, had some interest there in what was going on at a particular business, and was proud of what they had done. And they were more than happy to get up in front of, and maybe they didn't realize they were in front of the mayor and whoever else at the time, but that was cool to see students maybe that didn't even really talk much during class get up and give a very thoughtful 5-minute presentation on what they did.
That's the power of a student that has purpose, that understands why the education that they're receiving is going to lead to a better life for them.
I would say that's the power of an assignment that has purpose also. Your assignment
Absolutely
required the students to have an authentic audience and to talk with real community people. And those are two essential aspects of PBL.
And it was scary again, because it was something brand new, something that you've created. And we all know as teachers, a lot of times that kind of stuff fails.
But that's also where that learning really happens, is when you're scared to do something, but still excited about it. And that moves us out of our comfort zone, which is another workplace skill that students need. So I love hearing about that assignment. That's amazing.
Angie, can you briefly share what your showcase project was?
Well, it ended up was not my initial plan, but it ended up evolving. So what we did is we started with the entire beginning of the very first year of the major things we did. We did a visual resume where they had to draw on a picture in like a one-pager of all their best qualities. And it evolved. We did branding, we did slogans, which led to building a company, which led to, then we read our book. And from the book, there's so much wonderful information about how to build your work ethic. And so each chapter was some different project. And sometimes they were collaborative, because we did a lot of collaborating in my classroom. But they made an anchor chart with the main points, or they did a diagram or a pyramid of the lead. Because one of the most impressive parts of Nucor, I just can't say enough about this book. One of the most impressive parts about Nucor is they only have three levels of leadership. They have the employee, they have the manager, the plant manager, I guess 4, and then the CEO. There's just not a lot of people in between. It's just 4 tiers from employee to the CEO. And so we did the tiers of school and leadership, and we just did a lot of embedded things like that in the classroom, cause and effect. Because a lot of things, we always ask why, but most of the time we don't ask how. So we did a lot of focusing on how. So this is what happened, but how?
How did that happen?
How does everything we're studying apply? How? Well, it was a total application, and it spanned my entire wall. And I'm not saying that's great. I'm just saying it just worked out that it was a great transition.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a real reflective moment where they saw what they learned and sort of synthesized the key pieces, and were able to share and communicate what those were and how they're going to apply it.
Transferable to everything.
Yeah.
Transferable to absolutely anything that they'll do.
So my last question is, how would you say you have grown as a teacher since you joined this school? It's a deep question. So if you can take a second to reflect on that, or go for it.
It's easy. We've had to adapt the pillars that we're teaching these kids: problem solve, adaptability. Again, I'm just coming from my background and literally had basically done the same thing at the same school for 22 years. And then you walk into a place that is completely different, one of a kind in the state of Alabama, maybe 2. And we had to figure out how to fly the ship. And I think that goes probably back to maybe what you had talked about with our administrators, how you set this faculty up. You couldn't have just brought a new teacher in here and that will work. Not that I'm bragging about having 23 years of experience, but we know how to play school. We know how to be adaptable. And then again, getting out was said earlier, even for us as educators, being out of our comfort zone, then to see the success is very rewarding. Then a lot of the nervousness that we had and unsureness, it was awesome to see that first group graduate and things like that. And
it's like an unusual professional development for us, really, right? It challenges us and changes us as educators.
And it naturally invests us more into this place because we almost feel like we've started it. So we're invested in all aspects of it.
For me, this has really been a life-changing opportunity. You teach this is my 25th year, and you get into a rut and you do the best you can, and you always do the best you can. But this was just so refreshing to start this opportunity or to have this opportunity. And the rewards that we have have seen unfold when you see the growth. That's what's really, really amazing is to see the growth that these kids, because you can see growth in another classroom, just a core class, but to see how they go from not making eye contact to it's easy to have a conversation. And then another thing that's really changed in me is that I've always been intentional, but I really didn't realize how intentional I needed to be. And so now every lesson is intentional. How can I put them to work and do the best job I can do to let them be successful?
That's one of the most beautiful pieces of reflection I've ever heard is that we teach intentionality, but absolutely to be intentional about everything we're doing for our students. That's amazing. I love that.
This was really awesome. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
It was so nice to hear both of you and all the things you're doing. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, we're glad to visit you. We want the word to get out because CAD is special.
CAD is special.
Thank you.
See you guys later. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. SREB is a nonprofit dedicated to improving education from pre-K all the way to PhD and into the workforce. Visit sreb.org for resources on instructional practices, teacher data, career pathways, and more. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at SREB-School Improvement and on Twitter/X and Instagram, both at SREB Education. See you next week.